Another very interesting kind of configuring a filter is setting up a so-called partial filter. Now, in our persons collection, we have persons older than 20, older than 30, and so on. Now, let's say in the application you're building, which is an application for calculating what your friends will get once they retire, you typically only look for persons older than 60. Having an index on the date of birth age field then might make sense. But the problem, of course, is that you have a lot of values in your index that you never actually query for. Now, your index will still be efficient, but it will be unnecessarily big. And of course, the index also eats up size on your disk. Additionally, the bigger the index is, well, the more performance certain queries will take nonetheless. So if you know that certain values will not be looked at or only very, very rarely, and you would be fine using a collection scan if that happens, you can actually create a partial index where you only add the values you're regularly going to look at. So in our case here, contacts, let's see which indexes we have right now, and I only got the ID. So let's now create a new index with create index, of course. And let's create that index on the date of birth age field, but there, still in ascending order, but now with an additional argument here. And that argument for me is a partial filter expression. As a side note, you can also add this to compound index, of course, because now here I will define which field is my interesting field for narrowing down the set of values I want to add. And I will use my DOB age field. Now you could also use a totally different field, by the way. So if you know my queries, which I will run, should only return me persons which have a gender of male, then I could also set this here. And now I would only store the ages of males in my index. So I could set gender male here. And this is a normal query expression for equality. Greater than, lower than is also supported, exists is supported, and you find an article in the last lecture which also mentions which other queries or filters are supported here. So this equal filter is supported, and now what I would create is an index on age, not on gender, but on age, but only for elements where the underlying document is for a male. So this is what I can do. I could have also used the age here though. So I could have also narrowed down my age filter. So this would have been an alternative, for example. Now I still have the other index created, but this would have been an alternative. Not filtering for another field, but for the same field, the age, and then only store elements greater than 60. So whatever you need. Now I got the male case, and therefore we can query for DOB age, let's say greater than 60, and pretty print this, and we'll see something interesting. Here we got a male, but here we have a female. Now how does this fit our partial index? Well, let's explain our result here. So remove pretty and add dot explain in front of find. What we see here is that a collection scan was performed and not an index scan. Because MongoDB saw that, yes, we were looking for a field that is part of an index, but it also determined that since we say nothing about the gender in our query here, it would be too risky to use the index for that because the index is a partial index. And MongoDB, as a top priority, ensures that you don't lose any data. So it does not work in a way of naturally filtering out your result sets. Instead, what you have to do to use that index is you also have to filter for the gender here. So if you set gender male here, and I explain that, you see now an index scan was performed with that partial index. You now might be asking, okay, what's the difference between a partial index and a compound index then, if I have to specify both values here? The difference is that for the partial index, the overall index simply is smaller. There really are only the ages of males stored in there. The female keys are not stored in the index, and therefore the index size is smaller, leading to a lower impact on your hard drive, and also your write queries are of course also sped up, because if you insert a new female, that will never have to be added to your index. So this still makes a lot of sense if you often filter for this combination, so for the age and then only males. So then a partial index can make sense. If you rarely look for your other results, if you rarely look for women, this makes a lot of sense. Whenever MongoDB has the impression that your find request would yield more than what's in your index, it will not use that index. But if you typically run queries where you are within your index, your filtered or your partial index, well, then MongoDB will take advantage of it, and then you benefit from having a smaller index and having less impact with writes. So again, it depends on the application you're writing and whether you often just need a subset or whether you typically need to be able to query everything, in which case a partial index won't make much sense.